Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, and I'd like to welcome everyone in the gallery and also acknowledge that we're holding this meeting on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, in particular the Qualicum First Nation. So we have the committee agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda required? Then the agenda is adopted by consent. And then there's, we'll start with the business arising from November 1st committee of the whole meeting. And I would like, who would like to speak to that first? Ms. Spiller?
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a carryover from strategic planning, and Council or Committee of the Whole had directed us to bring this forward after we did a bit of wordsmithing to bring this back for Council's consideration today. So that's why the matter is before you.
Thank you. Any questions? And would someone like to make a motion? Councillor Skipsey.
I have a question about the parking at the Civic Center. There's parking in behind the pool, that's sort of between the pool and the Kiwanis or the lawn bowling, that almost always is empty, even on Remembrance Day, which is probably one of the biggest use of that facility. There were maybe 5 or 6 vehicles parked in that whole parking lot. So I'm wondering if that's owned by the town or the RDN.
Mr. Sales.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Skipsey. That is owned by the town. The regional district only leases the footprint of the building plus the landscaping immediately next to it.
The reason why we got the pool, because we did that. We provided the land for free and provided parking. Sometimes you have to go the extra mile and say, if we really want this, we will make that happen. Thank you. Councillor Skipsey.
Well, I just wonder if maybe some better signage, or, you know, we're looking at maybe permitting or something, maybe that more utilization of the parking that's already there could be part of the consideration as well. And otherwise, I will move the, I would move both of the recommendations, but if you want to take them separately, I'd move the first one.
I'll take them separately. So you move the first one. Have a seconder for that? Councillor Harrison, and you'd like to speak to it? Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to Councillor Skipsey's point, the existing sign just says pool parking with an arrow, and that might be part of the confusion that folks don't know. There's actually 2 sort of parking lots, not just the one.
Thank you. Further discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. And the second recommendation. Someone care to move that? Councillor Skipsey, seconded by Councillor Van der Valk. Discussion?
Just that I'm pleased to see this being prioritized. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and without further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Carried unanimously on both counts. Financial Administration. Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have a PowerPoint presentation for the third quarter 2024 update. So quarterly reporting represents a critical component in the reporting process, allowing for transparent communication of the progress on the town's operating and capital budgets, including strategic initiatives. This morning, we'll be reviewing progress on the third quarter results for 2024 strategic initiatives, capital programs, and the general fund water, sewer, and operating results. We will also be reporting on grant funding that the town has been successful in receiving in 2024. The staff report and attached schedules in the agenda that had gone out for today's meeting include detailed information on spending to date on progress made on council strategic initiatives, capital projects, and on the operating budget. A third quarter update on strategic initiatives was also provided to council and the public on October 21st at the strategic planning session, and a third quarter update on capital projects was provided at the November 1st strategic planning session. So as not to repeat the same information in detail that council has already seen, the strategic initiatives and capital programs will be reviewed at a summarized level in this presentation, and I'll pause after each section and address any questions that council may have.
Thank you. This is only a committee meeting, so this will be a recommendation.
Committee of the whole may have,
Yeah.
my apologies.
So this would be recommendations to council, and there are a couple of recommendations, but are there any questions to our finance administrator? Now, could I ask for a motion that we receive the information? Councillor Young, Councillor Van der Valk, discussion. Councillor Skipsey.
Well, I don't know if this is the right time, but I did have some questions about what was included in the package, the strategic initiatives, the third quarter update, but.
Your Worship,
Yeah.
my apologies, but I do have a presentation on each of them that I was going to walk through this morning.
Well, the motion is on the floor, so you can still speak to it. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So then I'll continue with my presentation, Your
Yeah.
Worship. So the strategic initiatives approved by Council for the 2024 budget year fall within one of Council's 6 focus areas. And 21 strategic initiatives were approved by council as part of the 2024 and 28 financial plan and included in the 2024 budget year. During the year, council approved an additional initiative to support healthcare practitioner recruitment by the Flowerstone Society. And as of September 30th, of the 21 initiatives that were initially approved by council and included in the 2024 fiscal year, 3 were complete, 15 were in progress, and 3 were not started. So most of the in-progress strategic initiatives are anticipated to be complete by either year-end or early in the new year. The schedule of strategic initiatives that was attached to the Q3 staff report, which was on pages 7 to 11 of the agenda that was sent out for this meeting, includes financial details and a description of the progress and status on each initiative. Your Worship, I'll pause at this point, and staff would be happy to address any questions that council may have on the status of strategic initiatives as of third quarter.
Councillor Harrison.
Sure, there's just one thing. When we were talking about employer of choice, I think a lot of that would probably, I think next year is when we're doing our CBA negotiation with the union. And I think there's going to be a lot of stuff in there which might exceed the 20,000 at the end of the day, just given the last few years we've seen. But I do think that's something where some of those issues would be addressed. I know we can't really get into that right now, but sort of more flagging for the public that, you know, I'm sure the union will have an ask and then we'll have a response. It'll be a back and forth in that.
Ms. Ferreira.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this initiative actually is outside of that. The employer of choice is an allocation that we asked council to operationalize in the last round of strategic planning. So the budget will exist for our HR department to support the town of Qualicum Beach as an employer of choice. And one of the examples we recently provided was insights training that we provided for staff as a form of team building and personal development and things like that. So separate and apart from any of the collective agreement pieces, these are ways to invest in our employees and our team.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. One is about the tree canopy update. So it came up yesterday at the council open house, how that information is going to be released or when, and I know that's not really a financial question, but I am curious.
Mr. Sales.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Skipsey. So that information is now publicly available on the town's website, and we will be, posting notice of that. An advance copy of those 2 reports was sent to council previously. Thank you.
I just had one more question. So with some of the figures, there's different initiatives that are completed, and then there's some that are ongoing. So I just wondered, I understand where some of them, let's say collaboration with our First Nation, there's a budget of 15,000, we've spent 500. So my understanding is the balance of that will be carried forward. But then there's also specific projects where they have a beginning and an end, and some of those came in under budget, a few came in over budget. But so does the difference then does that go into general revenues, or what happens?
Yes, so you're correct that for those initiatives that, like the council discretionary decision-making initiatives, where the budget was not used, we'll carry the budget forward to the following year, and council will approve that through the 2025 to 2029 financial year. And for those initiatives that have a start and finish and are completed, we will only take out of the strategic initiatives reserves the amount that was required to fund that initiative. So the balance will go back to the strategic initiatives reserve.
I just wondered if there's any way of identifying the ones that carry forward versus the other ones. I don't know if that's, just so that it's clear to council that those funds would be carried forward.
Yes, we can definitely do that in the future. We can bring back a system that identifies those, so council will know which ones carry forward, but we will be bringing those forward during the budget process as well. So we'll clarify that in the budget process, which ones are being carried forward.
Thank you. Ms. Varela?
Thank you, Worship. And sort of a good rule of thumb for the public and council to think about is if it was budgeted for a year but it wasn't started, we'll come back to council and ask them to reconfirm their commitment and that budget. If it's in stream and funds have been spent towards the project, those will be automatically carried forward. So just as a rule of thumb, that might be useful as well. And the discretionary amounts for the strategic initiatives, I believe there's 3 categories now that you've operationalized employer of choice, 2 categories of discretionary spending. One is for collaboration with our local First Nation neighbors, and the second one is tourism and small business. So those were placeholders, and council can decide to spend those throughout the year when initiatives are brought forward. I hope that helps.
Well, like there is another one here, community outreach and support with in relation to climate action. And it's only spent $100 out of $15,000. So I'm just assuming that that would carry forward then.
Yes, that one would carry forward.
Thank you. Any further questions about this? Then please carry on, Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Your Worship. So moving on to capital, the 2024 budget for capital projects is $13.8 million. And as of September 30th, the town had expended $5.8 million of its capital project. Most projects are anticipated to complete by year end or in early 2025. And all of the projects are anticipated to be completed within the approved council or reallocated budget provisions. The capital budget has 2 main components to it. There's a replacement of existing assets, which are at the end of their useful life, and investment in new assets. In 2024, the town budgeted $7.5 million for 24 projects for the replacement of existing assets, which were at the end of their useful life. 11 of these projects are complete, and 17 are in progress as of September 30th. All projects are anticipated to be completed, replacement projects are anticipated to be completed by year end again or early 2025. And the second, just to go over the funding sources for those projects, the $7.5 million there was funded, 3.2 was funded through the asset replacement reserve. 1.2 million was funded from the water and sewer infrastructure reserves, and that was for general fund projects that had a water and sewer component. So for example, we had bought a hydrovactor truck, and then the slope stabilization project that we had had some water components to it as well. So the water components were funded from the water reserve. And the Community Works Fund, which is known as previously known as the gas tax fund, provided $250,000 of funding to the capital budget. 214 was funded through DCCs, and there was grant funding of $1.7 million, and that went to fund the Bay Street slope stabilization and the AV gas fuel replacement at the airport. And grant-dependent projects of $898,000 were included in the budget, and that means that the expenditure will only be incurred if we're successful in receiving the grant. So we include a provision, a budget provision, but we won't spend it. We won't spend it unless the grant is approved. And we have some of these pictures were reviewed with council. All of these pictures actually were reviewed with council at strategic planning, but these are some of the examples of asset replacements that have taken place in 2024. So the top left photo is one of our hydrovac truck, which is used for drainage and sanitary sewer and water areas. The picture in the middle here is of the Bay Street slope stabilization, which I believe is a all of these projects are significant in dollar value, like the hydrovac truck was a $724,000 acquisition. The Bay Street Slope Stabilization Project is a $1.8 million project, and the photo on the right at the top is the replacement of the Beach Creek Culvert project, which is a $2.1 million project. And the photo on the bottom left is showing regrading and paving works that are required in the laneway behind the East Village, and those are anticipated to be done in early 2025 because they require the crane to be removed. And engineering works are in progress right now for the Seacrest Slope Stabilization project, which will have a budgeting request in the 2025 to 29 financial plan.
Question about the Vector truck. I know that's almost $800,000 expense, and perhaps through Mr. Dickinson, how often would we use it, and have we done an analysis that we could perhaps contract that work out, or have someone come in when we need them with a truck like that?
We do contract when we need more than one truck. We will contract out. I've been in a scenario where we had an incident when I was in Port Alberni, and we actually contracted 5 at once. We had an incident where one of the sewer mains broke, and we just had to keep pumping, otherwise it was going to go into fish habitat. But for our one truck that we have, we keep it busy. Like, it's running all the time. Like, it's either cleaning catch basins or it's helping us get down to water main breaks or services. And it's two things that it helps us with. Instead of digging with an excavator, you avoid breaking things. So if there's a nearby gas main or talus conduit and that, then you use the vac truck, and it just sucks basically all the dirt up straight down to where you're trying to get. So it is probably one of the most invaluable tools we have, comparable to, say, a fire department with a fire truck.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Any other questions? Councillor Harrison?
There were some things that were, maybe it's just Mr. Harry, if you could just frame, maybe it's a little bit later on. So for like attachment 3 in our agenda, would that be like later on, subsequent? We're going over finances, expenses?
That'll be late, yeah.
Okay, then I'll hold fire for now. Thank you very much.
Your Worship, I'll be, through you, Councillor Harrison, I'll be going over the operating budget a little bit later in the presentation.
Please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So the other component of the capital budget that I spoke of was the investment in new assets. So the 2024 general fund capital budget includes a $4 million expenditure provision for investment in new assets, which is comprised of 14 projects. 5 of these projects are completed and 8 are in progress. Oops. And there we go. And projects for investment for new investment in new assets were funded as follows. The Asset Investment Reserve provided $1.1 million of funding. We had $1.1 million of funding from proceeds from the bus garage site, $1.1 million in grants. $85,000 was dependent on contribution from the user group, and that was for the pickleball courts. The Water Infrastructure Reserve, there was a loan from the Water Infrastructure Reserve for $250,000, went towards the golf course pedestrian bridge, and $350,000 of that project was funded through accumulated surplus. What I should point out is that investments in new infrastructure are highly reliant on government grants for the town. Examples, and this slide here just has some examples of projects that represented investments in new assets for 2024. There's the Highway 19 roundabout completion of the art piece. There was the ditch infill project at Highway 19 phases 1 and 2, which created, that's the top middle photo, and it created additional addressed parking issues and bike lanes along Highway 19. There's also the Beach Creek viewing platform, which is the large picture at the bottom, and the Beach Creek viewing platform estuary, which was 100% grant funded, and the pedestrian bridge at the golf course. So as was described on page 12 of the agenda, design and geotechnical review for the Seacrest Road replacement engineering works are in progress, and the costs are estimated to exceed the budget by about $40,000. As such, staff are recommending that $40,000 of budget provision be allocated from the Bay Street Slope Stabilization Project, which is anticipated to complete under budget at year end, it'll be completed early in 2025 rather. So Your Worship, this might be a good time to pause and address any questions that Council may have on any further questions that Council may have on the third quarter capital update, and consider the staff for Committee of the Whole to consider the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Harrison.
Just because I feel like poking the bear. Thank you very much, Your Worship. So about the pickleball courts. So it's budgeted for $85,000. Obviously, we're not dealing with that tomorrow. But there was a note in the agenda that the projected cost might significantly exceed $170,000. Do we have a rough idea of that ballpark, where we might be headed? And again, I do think that this is something where we can have a conversation, be flexible. I'm just kind of curious what the total, it's going to be 85 from the town, and that's going to be escalating. Do we have a rough idea where we're going to?
Thank you, Your Worship. So that number was, it is my understanding that that number was provided by the Pickleball Club. I think when it was first put forward, staff had provided the caveat that that hadn't been ground truth. The club has indicated that number would be on the increase from that. Again, I think right now the town continues to reiterate the position that you have made land available and you have made $85,000 available to match those funds. So I'm not sure if the director has anything to add beyond that, but that is my current understanding.
I concur that. My understanding is the same. Thank you.
I know it came from, I think if Peter Drummond, Mr. Peter Drummond made a presentation to Council asking for our support. And I think it may also be helpful for the public, but in particular pickleball players, to show the site that we have in mind that they could use, which would have lots of parking. It's in the parks area near the skateboard park, ball field, so it's in an appropriate location where you're not going to have complaints from people about the noise. Apparently these pickleball players can be quite noisy, and it's a difficult thing to mix with other uses, but I think it's quite appropriate to put it where we have it. So in the future, when we have a council presentation or staff presentation about the pickleball court, or it includes the pickleball court, like you have these other pictures, is to show the site that we have in mind. So everybody knows this is the deal. We would be prepared to clear that site and make it level so they can do the construction, and we would commit half the cost of that. Anyway, that's where that is at. So I think this concludes. So now that the motion was made earlier, but we had a discussion, can I call the question? All in favor? So this is the motion on receiving this for information. Yeah. All in favor? Opposed? If any? Carried. And then there was another request that's on your agenda package about the $40,000. This is on the back part of the page. That the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that a capital expenditure budget provision $40,000 be transferred from Bay Street Slope Stabilization Project to the Seacrest Road Replacement Engineering and Design Project within the approved 2024-2028 financial plan. Could I have a motion to Councillor Harrison, Councillor Van der Valk? Discussion? Councillor Harrison.
And just for clarity for staff, that the additional scope for the engineering work doesn't impact the timeline for the actual work itself?
Mr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Your Honor. No, it won't. Basically, what's happened is we had to do some further investigation with a geotechnical engineer, and so this will cover that.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? If any? Carries. Thank you. So we now proceed with the preliminary budget discussion.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this presentation and the preliminary budget discussion is to provide the public and the Committee of the Whole with a basic understanding of what the municipal budget is and how it's built, and to revisit the budget principles and factors that are considered in preparing the budget. This will be followed by a high-level discussion of the cost pressures that are being addressed in the preparation of the 2025 budget. This will also be an opportunity to have a discussion and identify if there are any elements that the Committee of the Whole wishes to recommend to Council be in terms of being included in the 2025 budget. Oops. So we're going to start this presentation with a brief Budgeting 101 session, which will help residents who are not familiar with the budget process understand how the municipality of the town builds its budget. So the next few slides are presented in a very simple and basic format. And although Council is familiar with the concepts in these slides, I thought they would be helpful for residents who are either new to the municipal budgeting process and do not fully understand it. So starting with the basics of what a budget is, simply put, a budget is a plan for a sum of money coming into the municipality and how that money is spent for a specific period of time. It is also important to note that provincial legislation in BC requires that the money coming into a municipality is the same as the money going out of the municipality. This is known as revenues equal to expenditures for a balanced budget. There are two main components to the budget when reviewing the money going out. Jumped ahead of myself here. So the town of Qualicum Beach provides many core services to its residents so that municipal council and staff have to make challenging decisions to ensure that balancing takes place. There are two main components to the budget when reviewing the money going out and expenditure portion of the budget: the operating budget and the capital budget. The operating budget is comprised of the day-to-day activities of the municipality, such as salaries and wages, utilities, fuel, and supplies, just to name a few. The capital budget pays for the big investments, which include the rehabilitation and replacement of capital assets under the town's control and investments in new assets. So let's focus on how the municipality collects to pay for all of these services. For every dollar that comes into the municipality, 67 cents comes from property or parcel taxes, 5 cents comes from provincial grants, and 28 cents comes from other sources such as user fees. These numbers exclude the impact of grants that are received for capital projects. So in the grants portion, provincial grants portion, we've taken into consideration those grants that are received on an ongoing basis. So in terms of bringing it all together, now that we've learned what a budget is and how municipalities collect money and how they spend it, let's take a look at how it all works together. So money comes in from property taxes, grants, and user fees. The money collected is required for both the operating budget and the capital budget. We've already talked about the capital budget, including day-to-day expenses, but it also includes money for funding capital budget items. The capital budget pays for the big investments, which include the renewal and rehabilitation of existing municipal assets and infrastructure and investments in brand new infrastructure. This connection is made through two methods: the reserve method, which sets aside funds to pay for capital assets on a cash basis. These are usually projects that are paid for in the short term, such as road rehabilitation, replacement of a roof, or replacement of vehicles or building components such as HRV systems. Or the debt method, which is a second approach. And this method includes making principal and interest payments over the longer term for replacement of high-value assets, such as fire trucks, or the rehabilitation of a major facility where reserve balance are not sufficient to address the replacement on a short-term cash basis. So let's recap what I've just presented in the last few slides. A budget is a plan for money coming in and money going out. There are two building blocks to the municipal budget: the operating budget and the capital budget. The operating budget is like paying your house bills to keep the lights on. Just like in a household, the municipality's costs go up with inflation. The capital budget is like your major outlays, for example, vehicle replacement, rehabilitation of facilities and equipment. Money comes in from three sources: primarily property tax, the property tax levy, user fees, and grants and subsidies. The money coming in is used to deliver core services to the town's residents, including contributions to reserves. Municipal council and staff, with the input of the public, decide how to best balance the municipal budget, guided by provincial legislation. The town's 2024 operating budget is just over $23 million, and the capital budget is just over $14 million. And I'm going to just pause here before continuing on with the discussion of the 2025 financial plan development in case there's any questions council may have, Your Worship, or the committee of the whole may have. I stand
They're the
corrected.
same people, but a different name. Anybody else have a question? Okay, please proceed, Mr. Heyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So last year's financial plan document marked the second year of an exciting multi-year process in producing a comprehensive financial plan document for the town. The town's 2024 budget book earned the Government of Finance Officer Association's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. To earn this award, budget documents must adhere to strict program criteria and excel as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications tool. These efforts highlight council and staff's commitment to providing transparent and high-quality budget and reporting documents. In 2025, we'll see efforts towards continuing to achieve the award in future years.
I'm going to pause you there for a moment, and I'm going to present you on behalf of council, and we're very proud to do that, the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, presented to the town of Qualicum Beach. I'm just saying that here because people can hear me when I speak on the microphone. So I want to thank you and your team and all of council to work with you to achieve this award. Can I present it to you and step in front of the dais here?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Congratulations for your leadership on that, Mr. Hare.
Thank you, Your Worship. And this wouldn't have been possible without the support of council and the entire leadership team participating in the budget process. So thank you to all of council and to our entire leadership team.
Okay. Council, would you like to have your picture today with this award? Sure. One of the most important things we do for the community is our financial stewardship. So I think all of council should join me here with
Personal comments on how they have a balanced budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm going to speak a little bit about, I know the text on this slide is a little bit difficult to read. It's a little bit small, but if you'll just bear with me. Speak a little bit about public engagement process for the financial plan process. So financial plan meetings, subsequent to today's meeting, financial plan meetings will be held on November 20th and the 27th. There'll be committees of the whole. The November 27th, and those will be open to the part of the process of public engagement. And the November 20th Committee of the Whole meeting will include a discussion on the financial impacts and budget pressures for 2025 and review the 5-year proposed capital plan. The November 27th meeting will be comprised of a review of departmental service plans and budgets and a subsequent discussion on the budget pressures as well. At each meeting, there'll be an opportunity for the public to provide feedback and comments. And council will have the opportunity to also provide feedback and reference any adjustments or changes to the budget. This feedback will also be considered during the meetings on December 11th and January 22nd to make any further adjustments required or requested by council to the financial plan. The financial plan will then be referred to staff to prepare the necessary financial plan bylaw for consideration of third reading on February 26th and formal authorization on March 12th in 2025. So getting into the preparation of the budget, the challenge in preparing the municipal budget is in balancing the diverse expectations of taxpayer. The main priority for many taxpayers is to maintain low property tax rates, whereas others would like to see access to high quality.
I just want to point out, you see those guys climbing? That's what our director of engineering does. He goes for fun, hanging on his fingertips to climb on these rocks. So I admire people that have the courage to do that and the strength to be able to finish and get to the top. Anyway, it's similar to with this financial plan. I think it's a very appropriate picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as I was saying, some other taxpayers would like to see high quality municipal services. There's also a high expectation for clear communication and accountability. And yet other taxpayers are concerned with investment in green infrastructure and sustainable initiatives. So staff and council have the challenge of balancing all of these priorities and producing a budget and financial plan that meets the various expectations of taxpayers. The town provides many different types of services, including maintenance and repairs of roads, road sweeping, road marking, shouldering, and snow removal, sidewalk repairs and maintenance. In terms of parks and trails, there's parks and trails maintenance, including the maintenance of sports fields and other grassed areas, maintenance of playgrounds, benches, picnic tables, the skate park, maintenance of trails, including the Heritage Forest and Civic Center Forest area, hedge maintenance. There's also town hanging baskets that are maintained and planting beds that are maintained and maintenance of street and park trees. In terms of the fire and rescue services provided, they include responding to motor vehicle accidents, attending fire alarms, first responder emergencies, responding to structure fires, beach incidents, brush and outdoor fires, and hydro-related emergencies. In drainage and sewer and water services, services include items such as cleaning catch basins, maintenance of culverts, water service line repairs, meter readings, drinking water testing to ensure drinking water quality, sewer lift station inspections, flushing of sewer lines, and sanitary inspection holes. There are There are other services that the town contributes to, but does not provide directly, such as policing, garbage and organics collection, regional sewer treatment, regional parks recreation, the regional library services, and public transit. Services that the town is not responsible for providing, which are the responsibility of senior level governments, include housing, education, healthcare, and highways maintenance. So with respect to the services provided, the town's financial framework is focused on financial stability. This focus ensures that future generations can enjoy the same quality of services that are available today without being unjustly burdened with the cost of those services. Our framework plays a crucial role in managing overall risk, meeting the challenges of infrastructure investment, and providing effective service levels for assets and operations. Unlike household stability, which can include daily costs like rent, food, and entertainment, or long-term goals like paying off debt and funding retirement, our approach prioritizes sustained community benefits over a very long horizon with multiple bottom lines. This framework focuses on being mindful of the community's vision and priorities, which come out of key documents like our community plan, the council strategic plan, and various other master plans. We also, in this, sorry, I jumped forward a slide there. Our framework also focuses on financial strength and stability, and it's in terms of how we achieve the community's vision, and that comes through recognized value for services, predictable infrastructure investment, responsible debt management, have comparative property taxes, and improved reserve and surplus balances. Financial performance, which relates in terms of how we measure what we do, includes capacity assessment, workforce planning, establishing and reporting on service standards and service performance through our quarterly reporting and budget book. And also financial planning, which focuses on planning ahead. And that includes our 5-year financial plan. We will look into long-term financial planning in the future, and that's having 10 to 20-year plans. We're not there yet, but it is goal to get there. And the asset replacement strategy for funding to reserves. So the budget for the town of Qualicum Beach serves as a strategic tool aligning financial resources with the town's long-term goals to ensure sustainable development and effective service delivery for the community's future growth and well-being. Council sets priorities in support of the community through its annual strategic planning process based on the vision set for the community through the OCP. So the council strategic plan is a path through which the community's vision is advanced. And then council allocates resources for the town's priorities through the annual budget process. Regular quarterly reporting on financial results and key milestones then help both council and the public stay informed and contribute to transparency and understanding of the town's financial affairs. As I'd mentioned earlier in the third quarter review as well, the town has identified 6 focus areas which are reaffirmed by council annually through the strategic planning process. The budget process and the planning activities are undertaken with consideration of these 6 focus areas. In addition to consideration of the focus areas, the budget is built with the following principles in mind. Fiscal responsibility. The budget is built with a long-term view in mind. This ensures priorities are pursued in a financially sustainable and resilient manner and consider external economic conditions. It's built with affordability in mind, so the town aims to keep property taxes and fees affordable through ensuring value for money through productivity and innovation. The use of surplus and reserves is used, and reserves are used to smooth out volatility and provide funding for future projects and infrastructure replacement. Property taxes, utility charges, and user fees are reviewed regularly with affordability in mind as well. Comparisons with other local governments are made to provide context while understanding our unique local circumstances. Maintaining core infrastructure and amenities in an appropriate state of repair is critical to the long-term resilience of the town. This means ensuring obligations are not deferred and that infrastructure deficits or funding gaps do not accumulate to unacceptable levels. In addition to the budget principles that we just reviewed, the following factors are taken into consideration in preparation of the 2025 budget. Inflationary cost pressures. So it's worth noting that the cost pressures faced by local government can be quite different from the consumer price index. So people tend to relate budget increases to the CPI, and the CPI really reflects the basket of goods for a household. And so the goods that the municipality is acquiring typically and the cost pressures we are facing are quite different from those of the CPI. Workforce planning and organizational capacity reviews are done on an ongoing basis to ensure human resources capacity is used effectively to provide services expected by the community as well. A regular fee review is used to help keep fees current and inform the budget process cycle. The municipality does face a growing infrastructure renewal requirement. An asset management and financial strategy was presented to Council in October, which confirmed that, not unlike most municipalities across Canada, the town has an infrastructure funding gap that needs to be addressed. The strategy presented Council with alternative strategic risk-based scenarios to address tackling this gap. The strategy will be revisited with Council in January for Council direction and decision-making. Strategic initiatives are also developed through the strategic planning process and funded in the budget process. These initiatives are funded through strategic initiatives, through the Strategic Initiatives Reserve and from grants. Other operating projects require a one-time contribution will also be included in the financial plan with recommended funding sources. Staff take a comprehensive and collaborative approach in development of the budget. A thorough review of budgets has taken place by finance and the directors and managers of each service area, and staff are seeking out opportunities for reallocation of existing budget amounts and efficiencies in addressing required increases before relying on property taxation to fund these cost pressures. Non-taxation revenue is also being looked at, and staff have reviewed and are reviewing and adjusting non-taxation revenues accordingly to mitigate and reduce the impact on property taxes. The town's workforce is comprised of exempt staff, which includes senior management, CUPE employees, paid on-call firefighters, and a variety of contractors. Policing services are provided through a combination of a provincial contract for police services and the provision of municipal support staff. The staff complement has gradually increased in line with the changes in the operating environment, added responsibilities and services, and public expectations. Budget pressures that the town is facing with respect to workforce planning for 2025 take into consideration fair compensation for town staff and contractors, workforce sustainability, which includes the transfer of knowledge from existing staff to new staff so that staff can continue to provide quality services to the community. Over 40% of the town staff will be eligible for retirement by the end of 2025. The budget needs to take into consideration strategies to address the transition and changes coming to ensure services are not adversely impacted. The current collective agreement also expires in 2025, and the financial impacts of the upcoming negotiated collective agreement are unknown at this time, but will have to be taken into consideration in development of the financial plan. Additional 2025 work planning pressures include aligning resources required to continue providing existing levels of service and increased services approved during the year or requested through the strategic process. In 2024, Council approved the Wildfire Resiliency Plan, which addresses managing and mitigating the risks associated with wildfires. In order for the municipality to qualify for any future grant opportunities related to wildfire resiliency, the town is required to have a position to address wildfire resiliency and outreach. The proposed budget will include a provision for a Fire Smart and Resiliency Coordinator position, which will provide a combination of Fire Smart and wildfire resiliency services and fire operations services. The budget will also address resources required for services provided in the parks area. The November 20th Council agenda and meeting will include a report on the Parks Area Service Level Review, which includes details regarding the requirement for required resources. Additional resources required to match resources with service levels currently provided and additional service levels approved by Council through the strategic planning process will be included in the proposed budget. The budget will also include resources required in bylaws enforcement and technology services. The November 20th and November 27th public engagement sessions will include a much more detailed discussion of these requirements and their impacts on the budget. The budget also will address cost increases for materials, supplies, and services, such as computer software licensing cost increases in costs of materials and contracted services, such as road painting and police service contract costs. Council also allocates resources for capital infrastructure and asset management priorities through the annual budget process. Every year, the town makes a contribution to the Asset Replacement Reserve through the operating budget. The Asset Replacement Reserve is like a savings account and is used to fund capital replacement requirements. This approach to funding asset replacement is known as a reserves method, as I mentioned earlier. The rationale for using this methodology is to avoid wide swings in property taxation from year to year, which would otherwise occur from capital replacement needs. The town owns in excess of $220 million in assets. These assets are used to provide services and must be maintained and replaced at the end of their useful life so that residents can continue to receive the services that they need and enjoy. A lot of these assets were inherited by the town and built during the post-World War II building boom and are coming up for renewal. The renewal and replacement of assets, as I mentioned earlier, is funded through the Asset Replacement Reserve. The annual contribution made to the Asset Replacement Reserves is not sufficient to address the sustainable renewal and replacement of assets. This means that, as I'd mentioned earlier, not unlike most municipalities across Canada, the town has an infrastructure funding gap that it must address for sustainable replacement of its infrastructure. An asset replacement financing strategy to address infrastructure funding gap, which included alternative risk-based scenarios and risk-based service level scenarios, was presented to Council in October, and the strategy, as I'd mentioned earlier, will be presented to Council again in early January for governance direction on selecting a strategy to address the infrastructure funding gap in future years. Also, as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, this is a challenge which municipalities across Canada are facing, and it's not unique to Qualicum Beach. In the interim, an increase equivalent to a 1.5% of the previous year's taxes will be included in the proposed budget that'll be presented to Council to address the infrastructure funding gap. This assumption has been used in the preparation of the budget in the previous 2 years' capital plans. And again, just to recap, sustainable service delivery does require an increase in the annual contribution to asset reserves. The 2025 draft budget under preparation includes an assumption of a 1.5 increase in the contribution to asset reserves. Applying this amount of increase year over year is based on addressing the gap over a period of 15 years. And this, of course, is totally a governance decision, and Council can provide alternative direction during the budget process. Asset replacement considerations are based on like-for-like replacement of assets at the end of their useful life. Also, the assumption has been made that we will be maintaining our infrastructure and assets to continue providing consistent services to residents. I've referred to service levels a few times in today's presentation, and so just to provide a little bit more context, I've included a few examples on this slide of service levels. Water quality, for example, the replacement and maintenance of water infrastructure is kept at levels to minimize water boil advisories and make sure clean, safe drinking water comes out of your tap each time you turn your tap. Streets and roads are maintained to address safety of pedestrians and vehicular traffic. Storm and drainage systems are maintained to minimize the risk of flooding. Slope maintenance. Slopes are maintained to a level to minimize the risk of slope failure and damage to property. And emergency vehicles are maintained to meet FUS standards and to be able to respond to emergencies within a timely basis. New construction revenue provides some relief from the need to increase property taxes for the current year. It refers to the additional tax revenue generated from newly built properties or major improvements to existing properties during the year. This revenue comes from increased property assessments that occur when new buildings, homes, or developments are added to the tax roll. Preliminary assessments for new construction will be included in the proposed budget, and new construction estimates will be updated by BC Assessment in January, and those updates will also be incorporated into subsequent iterations of the 2025 proposed budget. So in terms of our next steps, following today's Budgeting 101 and preliminary budget pressures discussion, the 2025 strategic plan will be considered for approval by Council at the November 20th Council meeting. Public engagement session on the 2025 budget will be held on November 20th at 4 p.m. in Council chambers. The November 20th session will include a more detailed discussion on the specific budget pressures and their impact on property taxation. The session will also include details of the 2025 to 2029 capital plan. The second public engagement session will be held on November 27th at 10 a.m. in Council chambers, and this session will include a recap of the budget pressures and capital budget and discussion of departmental service plans. Staff will request Council direction on the 2025 budget at the December 11th Council meeting. The asset replacement financing strategy will be reviewed by Council again on January the 8th. This presentation will be Council's second opportunity to review the strategy alternatives before arriving at a governance decision with respect to addressing the asset replacement funding gap. Based on Council's feedback from the December 11th meeting, staff will present a draft 2025 to 2029 financial plan for first and second readings on January 22nd. Council will be requested to provide any further direction required for changes to the proposed financial plan at this meeting. Staff will then bring forward, staff will also bring forward a request for any early approvals that are required for capital projects at this meeting. The financial plan will be brought back to Council for consideration of third reading and on February 26th and for adoption on March 12th. And Your Worship, I would be happy to turn the chair back over to you and answer any questions Council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Ms. Varela.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one note for Council and the public that this calendar has changed from the last time you saw it throughout strategic planning. So it will have a publication date of November 2024 on it, and that will be the most current version. Again, this calendar has been produced everywhere we put it. There has been an asterisk subject to change, and that change has occurred. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Ms. Varela. For Council, Councillor Harrison.
So just two things. One, the comment I made earlier about attachment 3 loops into page 24 on your slide deck, and that was the staff. It's just future planning for staff. So if folks have essentially attachment 3 in our agenda, just to look at a couple of them for expenses. Council and Office of the CAO, slightly under budget due to staff vacancy. Finance, staff vacancy in Q1 and Q2. Police, trending favorable to budget as attachment is not staffed at full capacity. Parks, that's also too, there's a mention of staffing shortages. So this is something where I don't think it's institutional to our town. I don't think it's our CAO, I don't think it's our management team, I don't think it's a culture of the town, but it is a structural problem we're facing in terms of both existing staff that are retiring and then retaining highly skilled new staff to come in to replace them. Not to make one person on staff feel uncomfortable in any way, I'm not trying to do that, but we had an excellent planner, so that was on page 8 of our agendas. For planning, the planning position was filled. Well, she's also moved on. That was Liz Pollock, who was a wonderful planner. I wish her all the best in Alberta. As Mr. Hare mentioned, I think it was in about 4 years' time, 4 or 5 years' time, about half our existing staff are eligible to retire. So in terms of service delivery, to be able to deliver services, we need people doing the jobs to deliver those services. So you might see some tax increases as we're trying to fill some positions to make sure it's not a sudden break, and then there's a gap, and then we're doing a last-second fill with no knowledge transfer. So just flagging that for the public's awareness. There are a couple things that are mentioned there, the parks employee, some other things. And then the second thing was on the infrastructure. That's on page 27 of the slide deck, where it talked about how there's a housing boom post-World War II. In Canada, the year with the most housing starts was 1974. The year with the most housing completions was 1976. Our population was about 22 million, about half what we have today. So for the town, it's more 1980 if you look at the age of our homes. But as was presented earlier by Mr. Weir and Mr. Dickinson, it's more the 1970s and early 80s where we built our water and sewer infrastructure for large parts of the town. So it's all going to come up at the same time. So this is something where we need to start saving up. And of course, that means more money for taxes. But there's a very important reason that we don't want in 20 years citizens to have a massive spike because suddenly we're replacing water mains everywhere and it's chaos. Nobody wants that. So just flagging that as two things that sort of leapt out at me. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Anyone else like to speak to this? Just a couple of things. When I asked you to come forward for this receipt of this plaque, I should have mentioned your team leader, Ms. Varela, because I know, sitting in my office, I can hear the very intense discussions and debates about when to charge for what and how. So, Ms. Varela, I thank you too. You're part of the team that helped get us this award. Thank you. So, without further questions from council, is there someone from the gallery who would like to make a comment today? I know there will be other opportunities to speak to council during the process of public engagement. But if someone would like to speak now, I'd welcome you to come forward. And of course, remind you that this is a work-safe place and to be respectful to each other and to staff and council. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Worship and Council. My name is John Wood, and I do indeed live in Qualicum Beach, particularly Eagle Crest, the biggest and best community in town. We had our AGM last night, so I'm a little bit pumped up from that. I have a number of questions. I think Councillor Harrison addressed some of them, but they're things that not necessarily everybody who's reading this budget document understands what's being talked about. Give me a second here. And I wonder if I could address these through the chair to get you to address them to staff for potential responses, if it's appropriate. The first one is on page 7 of the budget document, which is the first page of the Strategic Initiatives third quarter update. The item number 2, Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan. The comment on the right-hand side in the second sentence mentions 2 fuel management prescriptions. And I wondered if there was any details about that, the definition of that term.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Can we bring it up on the screen, that page that Mr. Wood referred to? I think you said page 7.
Page 7, yes. Looks like that.
We won't have it on the PowerPoint presentation.
Pardon?
It was in the report that was in, Your Worship, thank you. It was in the report that was included and distributed with the agenda. We did not reproduce that report in the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, so it's in page 7 of your agendas.
It's page 7 of the agenda, yes.
Okay.
There it is. On the left-hand side, sorry, on the right-hand side, second item, the fuel management prescriptions.
So what was your question, Mr. Wood?
The question is, what is the definition under the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan? What is a fuel management prescription?
Well, we have our fire chief in the room, so Ms. Connell, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. So when we completed the grant for the wildfire plan, we also put in 2 wildfire prescription, a grant for the 2 prescriptions. After the plan was completed, the plan dictated that these 2 areas would benefit from a prescription, which is a forester looking at the area and determining what we could do in order to reduce the wildfire risk in those areas. Originally, we were thinking of using the community park and the heritage forest. After review of the wildfire plan, it was suggested that the area behind the fire hall, current area behind the fire hall, was a higher priority, as well as the community forest. The field work's been completed. They're completing their draft report at this time. We should see that back for review in the next couple of weeks through the fire department and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. That answer your question?
Yeah, I'm not supposed to thank him directly, but yes, that does answer the question. Thank you. The next one is on page 9, 2 pages later. Second item again, the town website design. It concludes by saying on the right-hand side, a public launch plan with the opportunity for public feedback, small letters here, is being developed with the site launch anticipated in Q4 2024 or Q1 2025. The question I have is, was there, in the process of redesigning and relaunching the website, was there active reach out to people who use the website to try to find things for their response on what in their opinion was missing? So rather than just the town saying we think this is missing, was there active reach out to the community?
Ms. Rilla, could you lead off on that answer?
Thank you, Your Worship. With your permission, I'll defer to the corporate officer.
Thank you through the chair to Mr. Wood. To answer your question, the contractor that we hired to redo the website is a local government expert in that expertise. So they've used all the analyticals and used but an actual survey did not go out to the residents just due to timing in order to complete the RFP to have it in Q1 of 2025. There wasn't an individual survey, but we have experts on it.
Okay, thank you. Oh, come on here. I don't have a lot of these. Page 13, buildings, the bus garage site, including Naked Naturals. The concluding sentence in the right-hand side comments says, at this time the town has not received an application from Naked Naturals. I thought there was an application made to the town 4 years or so ago when Naked Naturals first came to the council, and there was lots of discussion. It was referred, I believe, twice to the APC, came back for council. Was that not an application from Naked Naturals to develop that their proposed store?
Mr. Seals?
Thank you. Through the chair, the application at that time was for a development permit and a zoning amendment. Council approved the zoning amendment, but the understanding at that time was that they would be potentially reconsidering their plans based on the decision on town land. They would make a new development permit application. So the zoning is in place to permit the use, but not necessarily the form and character development permit at this time.
And what they were really waiting for was the location of the ramp. And so we've made that determination so they can proceed with their plans, including the knowledge of having a ramp located that in the future may benefit the town parking as well.
Yeah, understand. Next question is two items down. The facilities maintenance talks about a Public Works roof repair. Is that at the Public Works yard in the downtown area?
See nods from Mr. Dickinson.
Yes, it is. There was an incident in a windstorm a few years ago where the roof actually blew off, and so it was put back. And so there's ongoing maintenance concerns with that, both with making sure it's an impermeable barrier for the workers below, as well as we did this year. We looked to see if there's any mold growing up there, and there isn't, which was great news.
Super. That is great news. Thank you. Next page, page 14, bottom item. Pickleball courts. I'll make a comment. The descriptor in the left column says 3 words, pickleball courts. The people who are pickleballers know that pickleball is 1 word, not 2. So just for stroking the potential new pickleball players. But that's not my question. The comment says they're awaiting fundraising of 50% by the community advocacy group. Sorry. I'm wondering why other groups, such as the St. Andrews Lodge Historical and Cultural Society, I was trying to think of the acronym, why they have been tasked with raising 100% of their funds, and the pickleballers only to raise 50% of the funds. Is there a double standard there?
That's a good question. I think most of the funds that the St. Andrews Lodge recently got was from other sources, not like grants from, I think, $200,000 to help with the upgrade to seismic. So it's a fair question, but I think in this case, the community that's involved in preserving the St. Andrews Lodge has put in a lot of work and a lot of time, and they're doing lots of fundraisers, music events and others to try and preserve that building. So I think they're doing a yeoman's job, but we will also help them with the construction of bathrooms. We made a commitment that we would have both an outside and inside bathroom. So there is money coming, that is an indirect cost, but a real cost from the town to help provide those two items. And I think if you add it all up and you consider the staff time or people volunteer time, it would equate more than half. So I think they're doing a super job for us. Cool. And I think at the beginning, we were perhaps amiss not supporting them more, but as we learn about what they're doing and how well they are successful in grant raising, they deserve a lot of kudos. This project, as far as recreation, I compared it more with the curling club, the lawn bowling, the golf course, other organizations that have raised more than half of the cost of their facility. And to say that they don't need to raise any money, which at one time I think we were asked, is to just build it. And I don't want to put the words in their mouth. But I thought what we did was, based on what they said it would cost, we said, well, we'll pay for half. And I thought that was more than reasonable.
I'm just wondering how the St. Andrews Lodge people feel, because they didn't get an offer of half from the town.
I think it's a different situation, but I'd like to have other councillors who are perhaps more familiar with the St. Andrews Lodge speak to it as well. Mr. Harrison.
Just if I may, through the chair, it's also too, at the time, it was a huge job, and they said, don't worry, we'll take care of it all ourselves. You won't have to spend a penny. And so the initial reaction was, well, okay, good luck. And they stepped up admirably, and they've done a lot of hard work. They've been successful with grants. They've done a ton of work on that. So now, seeing how well they've done, I think there's a little bit more room for flexibility. So to the mayor's point, it is kind of an apples and oranges situation, but it really did stem from the initial proposal they put forward, which says, trust us, you don't have to spend a penny. Lovely, please, we'd prefer not to spend money if we don't have to. But that's just sort of the genesis of it. But I do think you have a fair point now, given how things have panned out, there's a bit more debate.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm thrilled by what the St. Andrews Lodge people have been able to do. And I was talking with Jay Smith recently, and I think they're over $450,000 in total raised for the grants so far. It's a tremendous number. I don't know if Councillor Skipsey knows the number, but it is tremendous. Anyway, onward and upward. Next page, page 15. The Satlam Park, hitching post fence style, et cetera, under the comments, it talks about scheduled for installation subject to consultation with Chief Rakalma. I believe the consultation is with the Qualicum First Nation, and he is the representative of the Qualicum First Nation. So heaven forbid if he gets hit by a bus, that doesn't mean that consultation stops. But I think the terminology should read, or the comment should read, that it's a consultation with the Qualicum First Nation. I guess that wasn't a question. And I think I'm requiring...
I'd say that was a rhetorical question.
It was a rhetorical question, okay. Page 17. Cube van replacement, unit number 56 or 58, can't read that. Ford would not be pleased with you calling their vehicle a Ford Lightning. It's a Lightning without the E. I used to be a proofreader, so. And then on pages 20 and 21, Councillor Harrison commented on this. There are 3 indications of staff vacancy, and staffing shortages. And it's a tremendous problem. I believe I heard the Director of Finance say that over 40% of town staff and workers are eligible for retirement in this coming year. So it's not within 5 years, it's within 1 year, and it's going to be a tremendous, tremendous challenge to the town to maintain itself as the town as we know it.
For clarity, that is 49% of the entire organization is eligible for retirement within 5 years.
Oh, in 5 years,
Yeah,
not
it is.
next year.
Over that 5-year horizon is probably most accurate.
Okay.
Thank you, Your
Okay,
Worship.
thank you. And that's it. Thank you
that's
very
why-
much. This is a very helpful session that's taking place today.
Thank you. And that's why our HR staff, I think they told us they had 25 postings recently to start that process. But thank you. Anyone else from the gallery would like to make a comment at this point? Yes, come on up.
My name is Marie Noel. I have a question in regard to the pickleball court, and particularly about how it's going to work. As I understand it, pickleball is currently part of our RDN commitment, where we pay for some of the pickleball courts in the area. And I'm curious, they have a fancy method of reserving them for themselves. So my question is, how will our standalone pickleball fit into that whole thing? We pay for it completely through QB, and we'll have our own booking system, or will it be merged into the RDN?
Thank you. Mr. Seals?
Thank you. The regional district operates the town's recreation facilities, at least its scheduled recreation facilities. So if the town does add additional pickleball courts, the assumption, I think, on both parts would be that they would expand and book those courts as well. It's not something that the town is interested in getting into.
Thank you. Anyone else from the gallery? Well, thank you, and there'll be more opportunities, as you saw on the schedule, coming up. So with that, Ms. Svensson, do we need to pass any further motions to conclude this today's meeting? Was there anything else on the list?
No, thank you, Your Worship. It was just for information,
Yeah.
the last presentation.
So, and that was, did we vote on that?
There was no recommendation needed for
But
this
just to
last.
receive information, did we voted on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
on the previous one.
And the $40,000, we voted on that as well. So that's all we need to do. As you know, probably know that our former Premier, John Horgan, passed away. And so we've lowered the flags at the town hall for that acknowledgement. And at the next council meeting, I will ask for a moment of silence. The other thing, when I saw the picture with us and the poppies, we had a really good, in my opinion, and Councillor Harrison attended the whole thing with the candlelight service and the Remembrance Day itself, to send a letter of appreciation and gratitude to the Legion for organizing those events. So if I hear any opposition, then I will ask staff to prepare a letter. I will help them with that, and maybe Councillor Harris can add some comments about how we felt that whole, well, four events really. First, we had the beginning of the Field of Crosses by both the Rotary Club and the Chamber. And then we had the candlelight service with the Field of Crosses on the 10th in the pouring rain, and also the candlelight service at the Legion in the pouring rain. So I think all those were done very well, and I think we need to acknowledge that. All right? Thank you. So with that, a motion to adjourn would be appropriate. Councillor Vanderwall, Councillor Skipsey, we are adjourned. Thank you.